Emma Rodriguez adjusted the spotlight, illuminating the newest addition to the Meridian Gallery's contemporary collection. The abstract painting seemed to shift and breathe under the warm light, its blues and golds creating an almost hypnotic effect. She stepped back, satisfied with the arrangement, when the gallery's front door chimed softly. "We're just about to close," she called out, not turning around immediately. It was nearly 8 in the evening, and most visitors had already departed. "I was hoping to catch the exhibition before it ended," came a deep, pleasant voice. Emma turned and found herself looking at a man in an expensive charcoal suit, his dark hair slightly tousled as if he'd been running his hands through it. There was something familiar about him, though she couldn't place where she might have seen him before. "Of course," she replied with her professional smile. "The exhibition runs through next Friday, so you have plenty of time. I'm Emma, the gallery manager. Is there anything specific you're looking for?" "Daniel," he said, extending his hand. His grip was firm but not overwhelming. "Daniel Blackwood. I've heard wonderful things about this place, particularly about your knowledge of contemporary artists." The name clicked immediately. Daniel Blackwood of Blackwood Industries, the tech company that had revolutionized cloud computing. Emma had seen his photo in business magazines, though he looked more approachable in person, more human somehow. "Well, Mr. Blackwood, you've come at a perfect time. This piece here," she gestured to the painting she'd been adjusting, "is by a rising artist named Cameron Vale. He uses a technique that layers translucent paints to create depth." Daniel moved closer to the painting, studying it with genuine interest rather than the superficial glances many wealthy clients gave artwork before making purchase decisions based solely on investment potential. "It reminds me of looking through water at sunlight," he said thoughtfully. "There's movement even though it's perfectly still." Emma felt a flutter of surprise. Most people commented on the price or the artist's market trajectory. That's exactly what Vale was trying to capture. He spent months at a lake house, studying how light moves through water at different times of day. They moved through the gallery together, Emma sharing insights about each piece, while Daniel asked thoughtful questions. He wasn't just making conversation. He was genuinely interested in understanding the art, the artist's motivations, their techniques. "You really love this," Daniel observed as they paused before a sculpture of intertwined figures carved from white marble. "Art has always been my passion," Emma admitted. "There's something magical about how a piece can speak to people differently, how it can change depending on your mood or life experiences. What does this one say to you?" Emma studied the sculpture, considering her words. Connection. The way the figures seem to be supporting each other, finding strength in their unity. It's beautiful but also vulnerable. Daniel nodded slowly, his gaze shifting from the sculpture to Emma's face. "And what's your story? How did you end up here?" "Art history degree, followed by business courses to learn the gallery side," she said, tucking a strand of her dark hair behind her ear. "I've been here 3 years now. It's not glamorous, but I get to work with incredible pieces and meet interesting people. Like tech entrepreneurs who wander in after hours?" Emma laughed. "Exactly like that." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of another man, tall and lean with perfectly styled blonde hair and an expensive watch that caught the gallery lights. "Dan, there you are?" the newcomer said, his voice carrying an undertone of irritation. "I've been looking everywhere for you. We have that conference call with the Singapore investors in 20 minutes. Trevor," Daniel's expression shifted subtly, becoming more guarded. "I didn't realize you knew I was here. Your assistant mentioned the gallery when I called your office." Trevor's pale blue eyes swept over Emma dismissively before returning to Daniel. "We really need to prepare for this call. The Meridian deal depends on it." Emma noticed the tension that had entered Daniel's posture, the way his jaw tightened slightly. This Trevor person clearly had the ability to stress him out. "Of course," Daniel said. "Emma, thank you for the tour. I'll definitely be back." "I look forward to it," she replied, meaning it more than she probably should have. After they left, Emma finished closing up the gallery, but her mind kept returning to Daniel Blackwood. There had been something genuine about him, a warmth that contrasted sharply with his friend's cold demeanor. Over the following weeks, Daniel became a regular visitor. He would arrive in the late afternoon, spending an hour or two walking through the exhibitions, often engaging Emma in lengthy discussions about the artists and their work. She learned that he had studied computer science, but had always been drawn to visual arts, that he collected pieces not for their investment value, but because they moved him. "My mother was an artist," he told her one Thursday evening as they stood before a vibrant landscape painting. "Watercolors mostly. She taught me to really look at things, to see beyond the surface." "She sounds wonderful," Emma said softly. "She was. She passed away when I was in college." Daniel's voice carried old grief, carefully contained. "She would have loved this place, loved talking with someone who understands art the way you do." Their conversations gradually expanded beyond art. Daniel spoke about the pressures of running a company, the loneliness that came with success, the difficulty of knowing who to trust. Emma shared her dreams of someday opening her own gallery, her frustration with clients who saw art only as commodity, her close relationship with her family back in Texas. "You could do it," Daniel said one evening. "Open your own gallery. You have the knowledge, the passion, the eye for talent." "The dream and about 10% of the necessary capital," Emma replied with a rueful smile. "Dreams have a way of finding their path," Daniel said, his gaze intense. "Sometimes from unexpected directions." Emma felt her cheeks warm under his attention. Over the past month, she had come to look forward to Daniel's visits with an anticipation that went beyond professional courtesy. There was an easiness between them, a natural rhythm to their conversations that felt both comfortable and thrilling. It was on a rainy Tuesday evening that everything changed. Emma was working late, updating the gallery's online catalog, when she heard voices from the back office area. The gallery was officially closed, but she sometimes used the quiet space for administrative work. The voices were male, and one of them was unmistakably Trevor's. Emma frowned, wondering why Daniel's business partner would be in the gallery, after hours. She moved quietly toward the sound, not intending to eavesdrop but curious about the unexpected presence. "The Singapore deal is just the beginning," Trevor was saying, his voice low but clear in the empty gallery. "Once we have their backing, Daniel won't be able to stop the restructuring. The board will vote him out within 6 months." Emma's blood went cold. She pressed herself against the wall, heart pounding as she strained to hear more. "What about his shares?" came another voice she didn't recognize. "Diluted through the expansion. By the time he realizes what's happening, I'll have controlling interest. Daniel's too trusting. Always has been. He actually thinks I'm looking out for his best interests." There was cold laughter, and Emma felt sick to her stomach. She thought about Daniel's trust in his childhood friend, the way his face lit up when he talked about building their company together from their college dorm room. "The Meridian acquisition will be the final piece," Trevor continued. "Daniel thinks it's about expanding our market reach, but it's really about bringing in investors who answer to me. He'll be lucky if we keep him on as a consultant." Emma's hands trembled as she crept back to her desk, her mind racing. Daniel trusted Trevor completely, had spoken of him as a brother, the one person who had been with him since the beginning. How could she tell him that his best friend was planning to destroy him? But how could she not? The voices faded as the men left through the gallery's back entrance. Emma sat alone in the soft lighting, staring at her computer screen without seeing it. Tomorrow, Daniel would come by as he always did, and somehow she would have to find the courage to break his heart while potentially saving his future. The rain continued to tap against the gallery windows as Emma finally packed up her things, Trevor's cruel laughter echoing in her memory. She had less than 24 hours to figure out how to tell the man she was falling for that his whole world was built on a lie. Emma barely slept that night. She tossed and turned in her small apartment, replaying Trevor's words over and over in her mind. Her roommate Sophia had already left for work when Emma finally dragged herself out of bed, dark circles under her eyes and her stomach tied in knots. "You look terrible," Sophia had texted her after seeing Emma's appearance that morning. "Everything okay?" Emma had typed and deleted a dozen responses before settling on, "Long night at work. Talk later." How could she explain that she had accidentally uncovered a conspiracy that would destroy the man she was falling in love with? Because that's what it was, she realized as she mechanically went through her morning routine. She was falling in love with Daniel Blackwood, and now she held information that would either save him or make him hate her forever. The gallery felt different that morning, tainted by the memory of Trevor's plotting. Emma found herself glancing repeatedly at the back office where she had overheard the conversation, half expecting to see shadows of the betrayal still lingering there. Daniel arrived at his usual time, just after 3 in the afternoon. Emma's heart lurched when she saw him through the gallery's front windows, his confident stride and warm smile making her task seem even more impossible. "Good afternoon, Emma," he said, his eyes crinkling at the corners as he smiled. "How was your evening?" "Eventful," she managed, her voice sounding strange to her own ears. Daniel's expression shifted to concern. "Everything all right? You seem upset." Emma looked around the gallery. There were 2 other visitors browsing quietly, and the afternoon light streaming through the windows created an almost ethereal atmosphere. This beautiful, peaceful space would forever be associated with the moment she potentially ruined someone's life. "Daniel, could we talk privately? It's important." Something in her tone made him straighten. "Of course. The office?" Emma shook her head quickly. "No, not there. Maybe we could take a walk. There's a small park just down the street." 10 minutes later, they sat on a weathered wooden bench overlooking a small pond where ducks paddled lazily in the afternoon sun. Emma watched Daniel's profile as he waited patiently for her to speak, noting the worry lines around his eyes that she had never seen before. "Daniel, what I'm about to tell you is going to be difficult to hear," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. He turned to face her fully, his dark eyes serious. "Whatever it is, you can tell me." Emma took a shaky breath. "Last night, after the gallery closed, I was working late on the catalog updates. I heard voices from the back office. One of them was Trevor." Daniel's eyebrows drew together. "Trevor? What was he doing there?" "He was on a call with someone discussing business. Your business." Emma's hands trembled as she continued. "Daniel, he's planning to force you out of your own company." The color drained from Daniel's face. "That's impossible. Trevor and I have been friends since we were 12. We built Blackwood Industries together. He mentioned the Singapore deal, said it was just the beginning, that once he has their backing, the board will vote you out within 6 months." Emma's voice grew stronger as she relayed what she had heard. "He talked about diluting your shares, through expansion, bringing in investors who answer to him." Daniel stood abruptly, pacing to the edge of the pond. "No, Emma, you must have misunderstood something. Trevor has been my business partner for over a decade. He's like a brother to me." "I know how this sounds," Emma said, rising to follow him. "I know how much you trust him, how much your friendship means to you. But I heard him laughing about how trusting you are, how you would never see it coming." "Why would you tell me this?" Daniel's voice was tight with emotion. "What do you gain from destroying my oldest friendship?" The question hit Emma like a physical blow. "I gain nothing, Daniel. I lose everything by telling you this. I lose the chance that you might feel about me the way I'm starting to feel about you. I lose your friendship, your visits to the gallery, probably my peace of mind for months to come." Her voice cracked. "But I couldn't live with myself if I stayed silent and watched him destroy you." Daniel stared at her, his expression cycling through disbelief, pain, and something that might have been hope. "How do you feel about me?" "That's not important right now. It's the most important thing you've said." He stepped closer, his hands reaching for hers. "Emma, tell me." She looked into his eyes, seeing the vulnerability there, the fear and confusion. I think I'm falling in love with you. And that's exactly why you shouldn't trust what I'm telling you about Trevor. I have every reason to want to drive a wedge between you and him." Daniel was quiet for a long moment, his thumbs tracing circles on the backs of her hands. "Except that you just admitted it. If you were lying, you would have found a way to seem objective. Will you at least consider the possibility that I'm telling the truth?" Daniel nodded slowly. "I'll look into it. Quietly. If you're wrong, if I'm wrong, then I've ruined everything between us for nothing," Emma finished. "I know." That evening, Daniel canceled his dinner plans and spent hours in his home office, going through company files with fresh eyes. What he found made his blood run cold. Subtle changes in contracts, investor meetings he hadn't been included in, financial projections that didn't match what Trevor had shown him. The next morning, Daniel arrived at the Blackwood Industries headquarters earlier than usual. He made his way to Trevor's office, his heart heavy with the weight of what he suspected he would find. "Dan, you're here early," Trevor said, looking up from his computer with a smile that now seemed forced. "Everything okay?" "Just wanted to go over the Singapore contracts one more time before the final signing," Daniel said casually, settling into the chair across from Trevor's desk. "Of course." Trevor pulled up files on his screen, but Daniel noticed the slight tension in his shoulders, the way his fingers hesitated over the keyboard. Over the next 2 hours, Daniel asked seemingly innocent questions about various deals and partnerships. With each answer, Trevor's deception became clearer. The man Daniel had trusted with his life, his company, his future, had been systematically working to undermine him for months. "You know what's interesting?" Daniel said finally, his voice deceptively calm. "I was reviewing the Meridian acquisition terms last night, and I noticed some discrepancies in the voting structure you proposed." Trevor's face went pale. "Discrepancies?" "The kind that would give you controlling interest in the company after the merger goes through." Daniel stood slowly, his hands braced on Trevor's desk. "Were you planning to tell me about that, or was I supposed to figure it out after you'd already destroyed everything I built?" The silence that followed was deafening. Trevor's mask, finally, slipped, revealing the cold calculation underneath. "You were always too naive for business, Dan," Trevor said, his voice devoid of the warmth that had characterized their friendship. "Too trusting, too concerned with being fair. The company needed someone with vision, someone willing to make hard choices. Someone like you. Someone exactly like me." Trevor leaned back in his chair, his blue eyes hard. "I've been covering for your idealistic leadership for years. The board knows it. The investors know it. I'm just giving them what they already want." Daniel felt something break inside his chest, a pain worse than any business failure could cause. "We were friends, Trevor. Real friends. I trusted you with everything." "And that trust made you weak. It made the company weak." "No," Daniel said quietly. "That trust made me human. Something you apparently forgot how to be a long time ago." Within 24 hours, Daniel had called an emergency board meeting. With the help of his legal team and the evidence he had gathered, he laid out Trevor's betrayal in stark detail. The board voted unanimously to remove Trevor from all positions within the company and to pursue legal action for breach of fiduciary duty. Trevor was escorted from the building that same afternoon, his face a mask of fury and disbelief that his carefully laid plans had unraveled so quickly. That evening, Daniel found himself standing outside the Meridian Gallery as the sun set behind the city skyline. Through the windows, he could see Emma arranging a new exhibition, her movements graceful and purposeful. She looked up as he entered, her face a mixture of hope and fear. "How did it go?" she asked softly. "You were right. About everything." Daniel's voice was rough with exhaustion and emotion. "Trevor's gone. The company is safe." Emma's shoulders sagged with relief. "I'm so sorry, Daniel. I know how much your friendship meant to you." It did. But it wasn't real, was it? Not for him anyway. Daniel moved closer, studying her face in the gallery's soft lighting. You risked everything to tell me the truth. Why? Because the truth was more important than what I wanted, Emma replied. Because you deserved to know even if it meant losing you. You haven't lost me, Daniel said, reaching for her hands. Emma, what you did took incredible courage. You saved my company, my future, probably my sanity. I just told you what I heard. You did more than that. You showed me what real loyalty looks like, what it means to care about someone enough to risk their anger for their own good. Daniel's thumbs traced over her knuckles. Earlier, you said you thought you were falling in love with me. Emma's cheeks flushed pink. I did say that. Past tense? She looked up at him, her brown eyes bright with unshed tears. Present tense. Very present tense. Good, Daniel murmured, leaning closer. Because I'm completely in love with you, Emma Rodriguez. And I want to spend the rest of my life proving that some people actually can be trusted. When he kissed her, surrounded by beautiful art in the place where they had first connected, Emma felt like she was part of a masterpiece herself. The betrayal that had threatened to destroy Daniel's world had instead brought them together, proving that sometimes the greatest act of love is telling someone a truth they don't want to hear. 3 months after Trevor's betrayal came to light, Emma's life had transformed in ways she never could have imagined. The media attention surrounding the corporate scandal had been intense but brief, with business journals focusing more on Daniel's swift handling of the crisis than on the personal drama behind it. Through it all, Daniel had been careful to protect Emma's privacy, never mentioning her role in uncovering the truth. Their relationship had deepened naturally in the aftermath of the revelation. Daniel visited the gallery almost daily now, sometimes for their long conversations about art and life, sometimes just to steal a few quiet moments with Emma between her appointments with clients. What had begun as intellectual attraction had blossomed into something much more profound. You're glowing, Sophia observed one morning as Emma got ready for work. It's disgusting how happy you look all the time now. Emma laughed, adjusting the necklace Daniel had given her the week before, a delicate silver chain with a small pendant shaped like a paintbrush. I can't help it. I feel like I'm living in a dream. A dream where you're dating a billionaire who looks at you like you hung the moon, Sophia teased. Yeah, I can see why that might make you happy. It's not about the money, Emma protested, though she was smiling. It's about how he sees me, how he listens when I talk about my ideas for the gallery, how he genuinely cares about my opinions on everything from art to current events. And the fact that he's gorgeous doesn't hurt. Emma's cheeks flushed. That's just a bonus. At the gallery, Emma was putting finishing touches on a new exhibition featuring emerging local artists when her phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. Something's come up at the office. Might be late today. Rain check on dinner? Emma typed back quickly. Of course. Everything okay? Just business. Nothing like before. I'll call you tonight. Emma tried not to feel disappointed. She understood that Daniel's company required his attention, especially in the wake of restructuring after Trevor's departure. Still, she had been looking forward to their dinner plans, particularly since Daniel had been mysteriously evasive about where he wanted to take her. The afternoon passed slowly, with only a few visitors trickling through the gallery. Emma found herself checking her phone more often than usual, hoping for another message from Daniel. It wasn't like him to be so brief in his communications. As closing time approached, Emma began her usual routine of adjusting lighting and checking that all pieces were secure. She was dimming the lights in the back gallery when she heard the front door chime. We're closed, she called out, not looking up from the painting she was examining. Even for your most devoted patron? Emma spun around to find Daniel standing in the doorway, but something was different about him. He wore a perfectly tailored navy suit she had never seen before, and there was an energy about him that seemed both nervous and excited. I thought you were stuck at the office, she said, moving toward him with a smile. I might have been less than completely honest about that. Daniel's grin was boyish, almost mischievous. I needed time to arrange something. Arrange what? Instead of answering, Daniel took her hand and led her to the main gallery space. Emma gasped when she saw what awaited her there. The entire room had been transformed with hundreds of small candles, their warm light dancing off the walls and creating an intimate, magical atmosphere. Soft classical music played from hidden speakers, and the scent of roses filled the air. "Daniel, what is all this?" "This," he said, his voice suddenly serious, "is me trying to create a moment worthy of what I want to ask you." Emma's heart began to race as Daniel led her to the center of the room, where her favorite painting from their permanent collection, a stunning landscape by a 19th century master, had been moved to a place of prominence. "Do you remember the first time you showed me this piece?" Daniel asked, his hands warm on her shoulders as they stood before the painting. "Of course. You said it reminded you of hope, of new beginnings. You told me about the artist's story, how he painted it after losing everything in a fire, how it represented his refusal to give up on beauty despite tragedy." Daniel turned her to face him, his dark eyes intense in the candlelight. "That's when I knew." "Knew what?" "That I was falling in love with your mind, your passion, the way you see beauty and meaning in everything around you." Daniel's voice was soft but steady. "Emma, these past few months with you have been the happiest of my life. You saved my company, but more than that, you saved me from a life of misplaced trust and shallow relationships." Emma felt tears prick at her eyes as Daniel reached into his jacket pocket, withdrawing a small velvet box. "You showed me what real love looks like, what it means to put someone else's well-being above your own desires." Daniel dropped to one knee, the box open in his hands to reveal a stunning engagement ring, its central diamond surrounded by smaller stones that caught the candlelight like captured stars. "Emma Rodriguez, will you marry me?" For a moment, Emma couldn't breathe. The ring was beautiful, but it was the expression on Daniel's face that truly took her breath away. There was vulnerability there, hope, and a love so deep it seemed to illuminate the space between them. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice shaking with emotion. "I know it seems fast," he continued, still kneeling before her, "but I also know that what we have is real, that it's worth building a life on. I want to support your dreams, help you open your own gallery, travel the world with you, discovering new artists and new ways of seeing beauty." Emma sank to her knees in front of him, taking his face in her hands. "It doesn't seem fast. It seems perfect. Yes, Daniel Blackwood, yes, I will marry you." The kiss they shared was soft and sweet, full of promise and possibility. When they finally broke apart, Daniel slipped the ring onto Emma's finger with trembling hands. "There's more," he said, helping her to her feet. "More than a proposal in the most romantic setting imaginable?" Daniel grinned, leading her back to the landscape painting. "I bought it." Emma stared at him in confusion. "Bought what?" "The painting. It's yours now. An engagement present, and maybe the first piece for your own gallery." Emma's hand flew to her mouth. "Daniel, you can't be serious. This piece is worth less than your happiness," he finished firmly. "Emma, I want to invest in your dream, not as charity, but as a business partner who believes in your vision and your talent." "A business partner?" "If you'll have me. I've been thinking about this for weeks, talking to advisors about the gallery market, the potential for supporting emerging artists." Daniel's enthusiasm was infectious as he outlined his ideas. "You have the knowledge, the eye, the connections with artists. I have the capital and business experience. Together, we could create something amazing." Emma felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of what he was offering. Not just marriage, but a true partnership in every sense of the word. "What about Blackwood Industries? We'll continue to thrive under excellent management. But I'm ready for a new challenge. Something that feeds my soul the way technology used to." Daniel pulled her closer, his forehead resting against hers. I want to build something beautiful with you, Emma. Art, love, a life that matters. 6 months later, Emma stood in the main room of Rodriguez Blackwood Gallery putting the final touches on their opening exhibition. The space was perfect, a converted warehouse in the arts district with soaring ceilings, exposed brick walls, and enormous windows that flooded the galleries with natural light. "Mrs. Blackwood," Daniel said, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. They had been married for 2 months now, a small ceremony in the same park where Emma had first told him about Trevor's betrayal. "I'm still getting used." "To that," Emma admitted, leaning back against his chest. "Take your time. We have forever to practice." The gallery opening was a tremendous success, with art collectors, critics, and enthusiasts filling the space to capacity. Emma moved through the crowd with confidence, discussing the featured artist's work with passion and expertise. Daniel watched her with obvious pride, occasionally joining conversations, but mostly content to let his wife shine in her element. "She's remarkable," observed Helena Grant, a prominent art critic who had flown in from New York for the opening. "You're lucky to have found her." "I'm the luckiest man alive," Daniel agreed, his eyes never leaving Emma. "She saved my life in more ways than one." As the evening wound down and the last guest departed, Emma and Daniel found themselves alone in their gallery, surrounded by the art they had chosen together. "Any regrets?" Daniel asked, pulling Emma into his arms. "About what?" "Telling me the truth about Trevor. Changing both our lives completely." Emma considered the question seriously, thinking about how different their lives might have been if she had stayed silent that night. "None at all," she said finally. "Sometimes the most terrifying thing is also the most necessary thing. And sometimes," Daniel murmured, leaning down to kiss his wife, "the most terrifying thing turns out to be the most beautiful thing, too." As they kissed in their gallery, surrounded by art that celebrated human creativity and passion, Emma knew that she had found her masterpiece not in any painting or sculpture, but in the love she shared with the man who had trusted her with his heart, even when it meant risking everything he thought he knew about loyalty and friendship. Their story had begun with a betrayal and a difficult truth, but it had become something much more beautiful, a testament to the power of honesty, courage, and the kind of love that sees beyond surface appearances to the genuine heart beneath. In the end, Emma's warning about Trevor's lies had led not just to Daniel's proposal, but to a lifetime of trust, partnership, and shared dreams painted in the most vibrant colors of all.